cloud bases are still very high up in the sky, so it'll take a lot for a tornado to touch down. But we're still watching that area right in here, just north of Lacona. That's the area of concern, northwest of Melcher, Dallas. Here's the street level, Quebec Street and Polk Street right there. That is where we have the reds and greens tightly packed together. We'll switch over to see if we have any debris. It does not appear that we do. Let me circle the area of rotation, and then we'll switch over to see if we have debris in this area. So that is the rotation. We'll switch over to our debris signature, and it doesn't appear that way. It's possible that this is displaced, but I don't think so. The other colors that you're seeing, where we're experiencing the hail, and the hail is a big concern with this storm. The hail core just off to the north, though, the worst of the hail, northwest of where we have the circulation. But we are seeing that area of shear. There's the hail core, and again, this is just north of Lacona, moving off to the northeast at a very quick pace at approximately 55 miles per hour. So you can actually see the hook appendage right here. There's Lacona right there, Melcher, Dallas, on the eastern fringe of that warning. And the hail core is just to the south of Pleasantville. So let me just see what that update is. We are getting a report from, it appears to be a firefighter down in that storm. Debris is in the air with that tornado-warned cell. So that is a report from law enforcement of debris in that area. Again, the debris core that we just saw is not right over that area, so that is something that we're seeing. But that's moving to the northeast. Again, it'll be between Pleasantville and Knoxville, just north of Lacona, and it tightened up even more. So that is pretty concerning as we switch over to show you the rotation. Strong area of rotation, but currently we are not seeing area debris. Now we might be seeing a little bit of a drop-off in our correlation coefficient, and it's a technical fancy term to show us what exactly is the radar picking up on. Raindrops, hail, sleet, right? But it can also show if there's areas of debris. And that is what we're concerned about. So the area of red and green packed right next to each other, that is where we may have a tornado. That is the area inside the warning that I'm most concerned about. And it's right along, just north of Polk Street, along 240th Avenue. That is where the rotation is currently located. Nevada Street right there as it moves northeast at 55 miles per hour. Very concerning look to the radar. We are seeing other reports of large hail, but the tornado threat is the biggest concern currently as that storm moves off to the north and east. So if you're just joining us, we're going to bring in a track to show you where we're expecting this area of rotation to move as it moves in this general direction at 55 miles per hour. So very fast forward speed. I would not recommend chasing a storm like this. It's very difficult to keep up with. We do have Trey Fulbright, our meteorologist, out chasing this storm. He said that he's been watching a wall cloud since the 6 o'clock news. This is a very mature storm, and he's been watching it closely. So Monroe in 20 minutes, and then eventually into Pella in 23 minutes. So just be mindful of this storm. We're going to switch over to show you a little bit of a different view of this product, which is our exclusive tornado indicator. And again, some good news. The cloud bases are pretty high up, so that funnel is going to have a really difficult time reaching down to the ground, but we're getting reports that there's been some debris, and anytime this BTI number is above a 4, it's a reason for concern, and we're now up to a 5. Chance of hail 100%. That hail could be up to baseball sized in diameter as that storm quickly moves off to the northeast, maybe slowing down a touch, but at about 41 miles per hour. So quick forward speed, still holding on to that debris signature. Well, not the debris signature, but the area of red and green right next to each other, just south and west of Pleasantville. Indications that this is a pretty nasty little area of circulation right near Nevada Street right there. We'll show you the wind speeds. You have winds, we get the query button right there. The wind speeds moving towards and away from the radar. There you go, pretty strong. So that is an area that we're very concerned about. If you know anyone in this area, make sure you tell them that this is capable of producing a tornado. Right now, we do have reports of debris, but you would notice these lines that demarcate the tornado warning. They would change to purple if it was a confirmed tornado, but We are on the ground north of location, so they are getting reports of the tornado. So it'll be interesting to see if the next update we get a more confirmation that this is in fact on the ground. We'll switch over to our debris signature, and you can make an argument that you've seen areas where the correlation coefficient has dropped off, but we would want to see it right in this area, right? So let's see what the latest update is. So now the tornado is observed, so the color of the polygon, will change color, and you'll start to see it change to a confirmed tornado, which will change this area kind of a purple color, since we're now expecting that tornado to be on the ground. There's Highway 92, Highway 14, and as you take it out and move it to the northeast, I want to show you the track of this storm. Really nasty looking signature there, moving northeast at 55 miles per hour. This is the direction it's headed. So you have time to get down to the lowest level of your home, keep as many walls between you and the outside as possible. But Pleasantville in 6 minutes, Monroe in 20 minutes, Pella 24. So we'll see if this holds together, see if it maintains its strength as it continues to move east. But that is the area, the hook, which we're still seeing scan by scan. That hook, the velocity showing the green and red together. What we haven't seen is a debris signature, which again can and will change. Obviously it's a fluid situation, and we've had reports that in fact that this tornado is on the ground. But you can see that area right there. That is the area of concern where you have that hook. The hail core is also significant. We've had reports when the storm moved through Osceola of 3-inch in diameter hail. It's still likely producing that size hail as it moves through. You see that area of white just south of Pleasantville. 3-inch in diameter hail still showing up in that strongest part of the hail core. So a lot of concerns with this one supercell thunderstorm, and it really is the only game in town when it comes to tornado-warned storms. As we play this out, you can see how it really intensified and tightened up as it moved north and east. And now we're really close to that warm front. The good news is once it moves out of the warm front area, we'll start to see it become elevated, and then the chance for a tornado goes down. The risk for large hail continues to remain the same or go up a bit. And if we can pop up Zane, I want to hear from my producer if we have Zane ready to go and see what he is seeing and hearing out there. Zane, what have you heard any reports or seen any reports from this?
Yeah, Chris, I was just reading here a moment ago, a report that came in 4 miles southeast of Milo when this storm passed by. There was a confirmed tornado by the emergency manager down there, so this would be Warren County, or at least far eastern Warren County, right? There's Milo here. There's just to the south and east. Now we're a little ways past where that circulation would be here, just south of Pleasantville, headed through the north and east, to the north and east, up through the northwestern portion of Marion County here. So let's get your locations going on this again. Still moving pretty quickly off to the north and east at about 55 miles per hour. So let's give you locations over the next time frame here. That would take it up eventually past Lake Red Rock. Lake Red Rock would be right in there. So around Pleasantville right now, if you cross over Lake Red Rock, and then there's Highway 163. So Monroe, little town of Otley, and then Pella. Pella, you would be right on the edge of the cone there here. But if you take it northeast, right there into northern Marion County, and then eventually into Jasper County, Monroe, 17 minutes, 21 minutes to Pella, if it would take more of an easterly jog there, and then eventually crossing into southern Jasper County. I was also looking at a little bit of a surge in some winds off to the north with this storm here, which is up in Jasper County. This one, like Chris was mentioning the warm front a moment ago, this one is north of that warm front, so probably not as much of a tornadic threat. But if you look here, there's I-80. See this little bulge in this storm just to the south and east of Baxter there. This is northern Jasper County. There's Newton right there. That one also zipping off to the north and east. We'll go to just the straight up wind look of the radar picture, and we'll get you a little bit of a look at that. A little bit of a different angle from the radar, so it doesn't look super scary, but where you see those red colors there, pushing away from the radar south and east of Baxter. Those are going to be probably causing a little bit of some wind problems just to the north of Newton here, north of Kellogg. Eventually, as you head eastward over towards Grinnell and Newburgh, Gilman there in the southeastern corner of Marshall County, or I guess that would be, Story County, and those will be moving off to the north and east too. I'm just going to put a track on that briefly, and then we'll go back to Chris with the tornado in one moment. But let's assume we're headed off to the north and east at about 55 miles per hour. That would go just in the next few minutes. There's Laurel off to the northeast, 12 minutes from now, Gilman and Newburgh. Again, that's just some severe gusty winds probably with that cell. The tornadic threat obviously remains here off to the south, a little ways down in western and northwestern Marion County at this point, Chris.
And Zane, a couple of things that we've been hearing. There's been half-dollar sized hail in Pleasantville, which adds up, right? That is where the hail core is, those brightest pinks and those embedded areas of black. That's the hail core. But we may be seeing a bit of a debris ball as well showing up on the south side of this storm as it moves up through Pleasantville. It's moving quickly, still at about 55 miles per hour, so we'll pause the radar. That is in effect until another half hour, I believe, this tornado warning. The main area of circulation where that debris ball possibly is located, moving northeast at 45 to 55 miles per hour. We'll put it there into Monroe in 16 minutes, Galesburg in 24 minutes. As Zane mentioned, going to be very close to Pella, but we think it'll just stay to the northwest of you. Seeing some issues with my radar here, but if we can go back to, unfortunately, I think you might be controlling the radar, Zane, at this point. If we can switch back to weather graph 1 behind me, Okay, this is weather graph 1 now. So now you can see, now if I can take control of this, we are not now having issues with this. So can we switch it to links 1 behind me? Links 1 behind me? Did we make that switch? It did not switch. It did not switch. Okay. Okay, now we're able to control the radar. So let's regroup a second. Let's clear this off. And now we'll get you down into the area that we're most concerned about, right in here. And there's that hook appendage just south of Pleasantville, right along Highway 92. And again, we're still having some major technological problems, unfortunately. Not the best time for that. But Knoxville should pass just off to your north and west. There's Highway 163. We'll put another track on this, what I was trying to do. You can see as it moves northeast at 55 miles per hour. That takes it just to the east of Pleasantville. We did get a report of a funnel cloud there, but it takes it just to the edge of the warning. So Monroe in 14 minutes, into Galesburg in 22 minutes, and then Sully in 27 minutes. That just gives you a good idea of the time you have to get into the lowest level of your home. Remember to keep as many walls between you and the outside as possible. If you don't have a basement, then that's an interior room on the first floor of your home. We want you to do that now. There are some indications that we're starting to see this rotation begin to taper off a little bit. And notice you had those bright reds and greens together, but we're now seeing that kind of displaced a little bit, not as well organized, but we still have a pretty mean wind core, and that is concerning. And the debris signatures are really difficult to pick out here. So we'll switch over to our storm impacts. Still have some shear, still have a bit of a hail core right through Pleasantville, and that is indicating about 1 inch in diameter hail. And then a bit of that shear is where we have that rotation. So we'll switch over to our radar sources. Again, not the image that we had a short time ago, so that is certainly some good news. We still have reported tornadoes coming in from Sandyville into Warren County, so that was earlier. That was a touchdown, and then it went back up. In Pleasantville, reports of a tornado as well. So that was, a few minutes ago. But what we see on radar now is a good trend. And we expected that as it starts to near where that warm front is. And Zane, I don't know if it's possible if you could pull up on the graphic system where the dew points are and the temperatures, so you could show that in a second. so people understand what we're talking about. When it comes to the warm front north of there, the tornado threat is much lower because you don't have the fuel, you don't have the lower cloud bases, you don't have the dynamics basically to keep a supercell thunderstorm going. But we still have a hail core. We still see a little bit of a hook. It isn't looking as significant as it was. We'll switch back over to our rotation. And we do have a little bit of it just east of Pleasantville. So we'll take you down to show you. There's Pleasantville right there. The worst of that circulation, there's 60th Avenue. There is Grimes Street, so passing right in between the two. Debris signature, again, very difficult to see. It's possible that that could be debris, but we really don't see the signature that we had a short time ago. But there's a little bit of that area of red and green. Those are some strong winds regardless. That area blue, probably over 40, 50 mile per hour winds right in that range. So that could be enough to cause some damage. And then as we clear that off, we'll show you the hook that is still, again, right near Pleasantville. Hopefully, at this point, it appears that the storm transferred that area of circulation just to the northwest. So yes, you see the hook. There's Pleasantville, the east side of town, but the radar signature is not what it was a short time ago. So I do want to go back to Zane so he can show you exactly what we're talking about, where that warm front is located, what these storms need to keep going.
Yeah, Chris. So basically when we're talking about those two boundaries, or the boundaries, and specifically we're talking about your heat and your moisture here. So this is just a 2-hour loop, the past couple of hours of these storms. These numbers on the screen, those are your temperatures. So you see we've got widespread upper 70s still even at 7 o'clock in the evening across southeastern Iowa. You head right up to about I-80, the temperature drops to just around 60 degrees. There's roughly where your warm front is from a temperature standpoint. Now from a moisture standpoint, that's where we check out the dew point. So which is the same thing, it's a number, it's a temperature, it's in degrees. Look at our numbers here, mostly upper 50s to lower 60s, and then we start to drop those numbers here as we head up north of I-80. So all of our storms that get up close to the I-80 corridor, they cross over that warm front, and then we don't really have to worry about tornadic potential anymore because they don't quite have enough moisture at the ground levels, and the air's not really warm enough either to really produce tornadoes. Those storms just become what we call elevated. They're up above the ground level. They basically have their legs cut out from under them, and they can't produce anything but probably just some hail, which is what's happening with a lot of these storms right now. So obviously we've got that storm, which is now just crossed over. It looks like the main core, the hail core, is just on the north side of Lake Red Rock here. So this is just to the south and west of Highway 163. There's the town of Monroe. Otley would be about here, Pella, and then eventually you head northeastward into Jasper County, and there's the town of Sully. A couple other storms that are off to the north. Remember we said as soon as you get north of Interstate 80, then you have those storms that are not necessarily a threat in terms of tornadoes, but definitely still a threat when it comes to possibly some hail. This one's still severe warned, south and west of Marshalltown, so southern Marshall County. That one's still moving off to the north and east. Looks like it'll probably, well, get pretty close to Marshalltown if it moves northeastward in the next probably 15 minutes or so at that pretty quick speed. A couple other storms that are also severe warned, again, not tornado warned. The only tornado warned storm at the moment is that one that's in northern Marion County right now. A couple of these other storms that are still producing plenty of hail. Again, these are more storms. A lot of these places here in southwestern Iowa already had severe hail-producing storms earlier on this evening. West of Winterset and east of Greenfield here in eastern Adair County, another storm that's coming into, that'd be Adams County, south and west of Corning, and then well off to the south, let me move that one just a little bit farther west. So this would be west of Mount Ayr along Highway 2 over towards Bedford. That's also is severe warned. All these cells in southwestern Iowa, just hail producers at this point. And for a lot of you folks out in that direction, this is round 2 of hail for you. The issue with tornadoes out this way, it's a little too dry, at least has been for the time being, but obviously we're still monitoring that potential, Chris.
That's right, Zane. And we've been in touch with Trey, who's been on this storm. And obviously, with cell service, the signal hasn't been great, but we're still receiving his reports. And he said that officially the tornado did go back up. So that is some good news that the tornado threat has lessened significantly. We'll stay on for a little bit longer. I just want to make sure that this storm doesn't cycle and intensify again. But we've had reports of tornadoes. We've had reports of of high winds, of funnel clouds, but right now that threat has diminished greatly with this storm, and we're not seeing an area of red and green that was right next to each other just south and east of Pleasantville, a little bit closer to Lacona as that storm moved through. We'll put on some of those spotter reports, and you can kind of connect the dots as that storm moved through, but our first report was, again, right here, and that was the first tornado with debris right into portions of Warren County. We had this report of a funnel cloud in Pleasantville, another one of a tornado 2 miles southeast of Pleasantville. That was at 7:04, and then another report a little bit displaced, but a tornado touched down, but again went back up, and that was near Sandyville. So those are the reports that we had and that we've received of the tornado. But we're also seeing a little bit more of that hook. I'm just noticing that the last couple of scans. So I do want to close that off, but this may be starting to cycle again, and that's why we want to stay on and make sure that we're giving this the appropriate attention that it deserves. But this is the area right in here. We'll switch over to velocity. You can make an argument that we're seeing a little bit of it, but let me fly back out and get you a better view and see what we're looking at. Yeah, right in here. So I'll take it a little bit tighter. It is possible that, again, there's Otley right there, Highway 14. There's Monroe to the southwest of there. That is the area I'm concerned about currently. And the rotation isn't really as strong as it was. But notice there are some elements, that purple color that you see embedded in the green. That is strong rotation that we're picking up on radar. Again, not extreme rotation, but an area of strong rotation in the northern flank of that warning. And we'll kind of play this out so you can see how this storm has cycled over the last few minutes. It's maintained its structure fairly well. It had weakened a couple of minutes ago, but now we're starting to see a little bit more of that to the north and east of Pleasantville. And again, it's on the northwest part of that warning that we're most concerned about. Again, just north of Pleasantville, there's Runnels just outside of the warning, but there's Pleasantville now out of the woods, at least the main area of Pleasantville, but to the north and east of town, that is where we still have some of that rotation. There's Gear Street, just north of there. That is an area that I'm concerned about. And then you go a little bit farther to the northwest, 90th Place, Coolidge Street. And again, we still have a pretty good wind core, a little bit of a messy signature, but we'll switch over to see if we have another vantage point. Looks about the same. And the worst of the rotation is actually displaced off to the south and west. So we'll give it a second to catch up. But again, no debris. This is actually outside of any of the reflectivity returns that we're seeing on radar, these blues. That would be the color if that was embedded where you saw that hook echo. That is where we would see debris, but this is just nothing falling from the sky right now. The worst of it off to the north and east. And as we switch to our storm impacts, still there's a hail core that's present now just east of the main storm right along Highway 163. And you may see about 1 inch in diameter hail. But I think that weakening trend will continue. The closer it gets to that warm front, the more elevated that this storm becomes and less of a severe weather threat. What's interesting is a little bit of push of wind heading towards Pella, and that may mean the storm is kind of gusting out the weakest part. The wind kind of outpaces the storm and will essentially weaken it. That happened earlier, and the storm kind of fell apart before reemerging on radar, but a little burst of wind coming into Pella in the next little bit as that gust front kind of moves out away from the thunderstorm. Not looking like it was earlier, so that is some good news. But there's the storm that we're concerned about. What's interesting is out towards Winterset, but I don't know what the dew points are out there. Also a messy signature, but we may see some stronger winds associated with that as that storm moves through. But if you looked on radar, you could make an argument that there's a little bit of a hook signature just south and west into Madison County, the southwestern part of the county. We may see a little bit of rotation there. Not screaming tornado at this point, but we are seeing the possibility of some hail and damaging winds. You see that area brighter pink in northwest parts of Madison County, and that's 1 inch in diameter hail. And on the southern flank, that's where we see some of the stronger winds that are picking up there south and west of Winterset, about ready to move into Creston. So those are the couple of areas that we're watching. Again, diminished tornado threat, and especially now that this storm is moving up towards the warm front, and north of the warm front, that will eliminate the risk altogether. So I'm pretty confident that they'll allow this warning to expire once it continues to move east a little bit closer to Interstate 80. And then once it does, we'll likely return you back to programming. Again, we apologize for the inconvenience, but just trying to give people the heads up out ahead of the storm. The next line of storms, though, moving up towards the metro, they're moving off to the north and east, and they'll be arriving in the next couple of hours. We'll play that out. And you can see the general storm motion out of the west, moving to the northeast. And this will be round 2 for places like Waukee and West Des Moines. Zane, are you seeing anything?
Trey was just communicating with me, just passed along that the tornado is no longer down. We're talking about the one over here, over towards Lake Red Rock here in northern Marion County. The tornado is no longer down. He said the wall cloud is gone too. So that's good news, because then you don't even have necessarily a base for the tornado to come down from. So that storm hopefully shouldn't be able to have enough time to cycle before it gets up to the warm front, crosses it, and then it's over the bridge and can't really do anything else tornado-wise. And then our only other storms we'll be looking at still is this hail-producing storm up here as you head towards Marshalltown and further south and east into Marshall County. That's moving northeast. That'll pass by to the north of Tama and Toledo, probably before long, maybe a good little push of wind there as well. And then these 2 other storms kind of in line together down in western Madison County and back into basically the intersection of Adair, Union, and Adams counties. Those are still hail-producing storms as well. It looked like this storm west of Winterset, right over Macksburg there, has been trying to rotate just a little bit. It's not a very clear signature, but for now, it's mainly just a hail threat, Chris.
Yeah, definitely, and hopefully it stays that way. This was the one exception, that storm that's moving off to the north and east. So good news from Trey, but there was the latest update about 6 minutes ago, still said a confirmed tornado near Elk Rock State Park. But I trust our eyes and ears, and Trey's obviously a tremendous meteorologist. And looking at radar signature, it's really tough to say that and argue that this storm is still producing a tornado. You may have heard Zane and I talking about the cloud heights being pretty high, and it would take a really long funnel to make it down to the ground from the cloud bases. Just received a picture from near Pleasantville when the tornado was on the ground, and it was an extremely long funnel, in fact. So we do. So if we can pump that up, Caitlin, we can show you that picture. Do we have it? Okay, so we'll pull up the picture of that funnel cloud and the tornado that was moving through, because it really shows it's difficult. It's a lot more difficult if there's a bigger space to get from point A, which is the cloud base, to point B, the ground. And it's difficult if that space or that distance is greater. So the greater the distance, the more difficult it is. And look at that. Those cloud bases are around, 1,200, 1,500 feet. So for it to drop down to the ground, very skinny funnel, doesn't necessarily mean that means less damage, but it was a lot more difficult for that storm to produce a tornado than it was if you had cloud bases, at several hundred feet, right? So that's the difference, 500 feet versus 1,500 feet. You get a funnel that looks like that. Obviously, it can still cause a lot of damage. We got reports from law enforcement there that there was some debris being lofted. We don't know if there are any damage reports right now across the county, but that's a perfect example why on days like today, it's possible that we can get tornadoes, but it's a lot more difficult for us to get them. Yeah, let's look at the hail core. Well, we don't have that hail picture. So we did have earlier 3-inch in diameter hail from those thunderstorms that moved through, but we still have about 8 more minutes left on that tornado warning. That's what it looks like behind the scenes. That's what I see. So when you're looking at the weather graphics, it's just a green wall. But Monroe to Sully, that is the hail core. That is the area, again, that's moving to the north and east. We've seen this cycle a couple of times, so until this storm is, we'll go back to the hail picture, New Virginia, because this is just to show you what we've been dealing with today. It's been a lot of large hail reports, not a lot of tornado warnings. Just this one tornado warning has been an exception, but we've had up to baseball-sized hail. And if you have that picture, just put it up. I won't even call for it. But but we've had hail up to 3 inches in diameter in Osceola, and that has that was the same storm that moved through the entire region. And if this is an update, rotation of the storm, okay, they're allowing it to expire, so we're not going to take up any more of your time. We do have active severe thunderstorm warnings off to the west, and if they ramp up, we'll be sure to break back into programming.